Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lucha Underground Luchador Spotlight. On our last episode, we talked about Bengala, had a few interesting ideas for him and people that he could feud with in season two. But now, let's talk about a gentleman that has grown to be one of our favorites and somebody that we feel is quite underrated, Marty the Moth Martinez.
You want to talk about an impact player? I think, the first name you come across, at least for me, is Marty the Moth Martinez. This guy, I'm going to say it right now. I think if you were to say the top five guys that are really going to make a splash in season two, I think Marty has to be a part of that conversation. Because I think we got a slight taste of what he's all about in the first season, but now we're going to get the full course, the full spread of what this guy is capable of. And especially with whoever his sister is, he might have the most interesting arc of the season, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what really makes his character special, and we can even kind of use this as a bit of a segue to talk about what he did in season one. The way that we first saw him in season one was he was portrayed as just a fan that was waiting outside the temple because he wanted a chance in the temple to fight.
Right.
I love
And
that. I think that that's really, really well done. It's a really cool way to kind of make the guy feel like a product of the temple.
exactly. Of course, we'd find out that he's more than just a fan. He's a few fries short of a happy meal, to say the least. But I think, again, very interesting aspect of the character. This guy that really believes he has Aztec blood. He comes from this, kind of tribe, and he's going to do anything he can to prove himself.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that also the first match that we saw him in was against the freaking champion at the time, Prince Puma.
Yeah, definitely a big indicator like, hey, watch this guy, everybody, because he's going to go on to do big things. I mean, when you debut, to your point, against the Lucha Underground World Champion, that's all you really need to know.
Yeah. And it's also, I mean, that was his first actual match, but he did have a moment earlier on in the season where he showed up because on the same episode where we first saw him camping outside the temple and talking to Cueto and stuff, he did show up later on in that show. He showed up during a match, actually. It was a triple threat. Hernandez, King Cuerno, and Cage, where the winner got a title shot, and Marty showed up just to get beat up, basically.
Yeah, they all kind of ganged up on him, beat the crap out of him, got him out of the ring, pretty much telling him, like, hey, you don't belong here, this is our business, get out. So they handed him pretty readily there.
Yeah, absolutely. So then he had his match against Puma, but then he was in a big fatal four-way match that was actually originally supposed to be a five-way match, but then Pentagon cut a promo and got up in Vampiro's face and just kind of left, so he wasn't involved. But it was Aerostar, Cage, the Mac, and Marty for an Aztec medallion. And sadly, Marty was actually the one that ate the pin in this. He got pinned by Aerostar because Cage and the Mac were kind of fighting on the outside and they kind of canceled each other out.
Yeah, Marty the Moth failing to ascertain an Aztec medallion and doing right by his alleged Aztec blood. Kind of a bitter pill to swallow there for the Moth.
Yeah. So then we saw him versus Alberto El Patron. Of course, Patron won this because Patron was really like a top kind of main event level guy in season one. And then that was when Patron cut his big "I'm going to rip your face off" thing with Johnny Mundo. But Marty, he had a rough first season because then a couple episodes later, we had the big Superfly Sexy Star Aztec Medallion match where Sexy Star debuted La Mystica to beat him, and Marty comes out and he tries to take the Moth Medallion because it's a moth, I guess. And he challenges Sexy Star for it, and the crowd kind of says like, "Yeah, do it, go ahead." And Sexy Star agrees, but she beats him also with La Mystica.
I'm really glad you mentioned that it was a moth medallion because I think that made it all the more special because Marty's like, okay, this is my chance to prove myself. This is my tribe. This is my destiny, my moment, only to have Sexy Star upset him with La Mystica. And I think given all of that, given that this is Marty's last chance to really prove himself, to validate his Aztec blood, so to speak, it's really easy to see how him and Sexy Star could have the fallout that they had and that he just really reached his breaking point. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we had on episode 37, we had that big battle royal for Phoenix's medallion where Phoenix didn't show up until the very last minute. And then they were like, well, you know what? We don't like you, so you're going to have to fight for your medallion anyway. And they put him in the battle royal. Marty was in that. And he actually ended up being the last person to be eliminated because it came down to him versus Phoenix, and it became a regular one-on-one match. Although sadly, Phoenix did make quick work of Marty, it was still awesome to see him get that little bit of a rub because he got there over names like Superfly, Killshot, Arhenis, Davari, and of course a bunch of the undercard guys. But it's still really cool. And Mascarita Sagrada was in that too. But it was still cool to see.
Yeah, I think this really kind of furthered, a running theme for Marty the Moth's first season action. He was actually very competent and very game in most of his matches. They were very competitive, with the exception, I believe, of the Alberto El Patron match, which is the closest thing to a squash match that Marty had in his first season. I mean, even Sexy Star, even though she ultimately got the win, there was a little bit more back and forth than even Superfly had prior to that bout. So Marty the Moth really held his own in the first season in pretty much all of his matches. I like that.
Yeah, and I like that, and I think that the only other appearance that we saw from him was in Ultima Lucha in the 7-way medallion match, or not medallion, the Gift of the Gods match, where he showed up and I think, did he attack Superfly or did he abduct her or what?
Yeah, he attacked Sexy Star, and then I think it was the whole post kind of credits thing, the big final 5 minutes
where she was wrapped in like a rope cocoon.
Exactly.
That was so cool.
Yeah, that was amazing imagery, and with the light kind of swaying back and forth and him kind of flapping his arms and saying, "Wait until you meet my sister," and yeah, just really set an amazing tone.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's just, I know that we usually here at this point go kind of straight from season 1 to season 2, but let's just kind of have a brief discussion, and I do mean brief in this case because I don't want to overinflate this commentary too much, about just the Marty the Moth character and specifically what we expect from season 2 and his sister.
Okay, well, I mean, you want to keep it brief, so let me just come at you with the biggest thing that I've been thinking about lately, knowing that we were going to do this commentary. Do you think that they could use the whole brother-sister dynamic between Marty the Moth and his sister to make Marty potentially more sympathetic throughout the second season? Because I was actually thinking,
No.
wouldn't it be okay, well, you just said no right off the bat, but I was going to say, wouldn't it be interesting if it turned out that she was like even crazier than he was, and like they had just a really interesting kind of familial relationship where maybe she kind of bullied him or picked on him or whatever.
That's what you meant. I like that, because when you said make him more sympathetic, I was thinking like somebody was gonna like screw with his sister and make him be like sympathetic because like
no, I think
that I love that idea. That's a great idea. I was even thinking like the reason I originally said no is because my whole thing was I want his sister to be better than him. Like I want his sister to be a really good fighter. Like I want for the whole season I want him to lose pretty much all of his matches, and then his sister gets in the ring with the same people that he's losing to and destroys them.
Yes, I love that idea. Love it. Yeah, I think if you make her the superior of the two siblings, if you give him a backstory where she kind of picked on him, never really respected him, and I would even have, now I don't know if this is taking it too far, but I was even thinking you could have moments where they've got Sexy Star in captivity, and Marty's sister is like torturing Sexy Star by whatever means she chooses to. And Marty, I wouldn't necessarily say remorse per se, but even he's kind of looking at it and thinking, that may be a bit too far. But he's so scared of his sister, he's not going to step in. I think you could tell a very interesting story with these two in the second season. I think it could be a great psychological study of Marty the Moth and what makes him who he is. And that's really what I'm kind of looking for with this brother-sister dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that the whole idea of her being the better fighter works, but I don't think that she should be crazier than him. I think she should be maybe more brutal, maybe a tougher, maybe, like I said, a better fighter, but I think he needs to be the one that's completely loopy and out of his mind.
Okay, so he's loopy, but maybe she's more like cunning and calculating then? Like maybe she's just kind of like, in other words, the brains of the
cunning
operation.
And calculated is, exactly, the brains of the operation. It's like she's the big sister. She's had to take care of him their whole life. She's the one that's more grounded in reality, and he's lived in a fantasy land his entire life, so he's a little bit loopy.
And I think that could still work for what I'm kind of aiming towards. And again, maybe sympathetic was the wrong word for Marty, but I think the goal should be to maybe try and identify with him a little bit more, maybe to get him more humane ground or just something like that, just to really see. Because, I mean, nobody really just ends up crazy. There's always like a succession of things that happen leading up to that point, leading up to that crescendo of just snapping in this insanity. I'd like to see his progression, and I think his sister, I would have to guess, had a lot to do with it. That said, even if they don't go that route, you already know one of my earliest plans for Marty the Moth. I would get him on Ultima Lucha 2. I would love to see a feud between him and Drago. Because I think Marty, being this huge fan and being this guy that's just obsessed with the tribes and thinking that he has Aztec blood,
Yeah.
I even said in one of our commentaries, I think it was the Drago commentary actually, where I said that you could have Marty kind of skulking around and he sees Drago and maybe he's telling his sister, look, sis, I told you, it's the last dragon, it's the last known dragon, and like he makes this big thing that Drago's the last existing dragon. And, you know, he wants to kind of rein Drago in. He wants to know, like, I took this dragon down and do right by my tribe, do right by my ancestors. I think you could do a great story with that. So, yeah, I still say, all things considered, that I would love to see Drago versus Marty the Moth at Ultima Lucha. So
Yeah.
that's my big story for him.
Yeah. That's a really cool idea. I like that. You know, I think that, I don't know. I feel like maybe for season 3, a really good end game would be Marty versus his sister, where we get like the full on Marty face turn.
Yeah, I love that idea.
But I think you need to build up to that more than just one season, which is why I said season 3.
Yes.
So
Yes.
for season 2, you know what I might do is I might have Marty get his first win ever in Lucha Underground at Ultima Lucha season 2.
Interesting. Now the question is, who's the opponent?
You know, I think, you know, man, that's a tough one. I do think for sure that we need to have the whole build. This is my plan. I don't know exactly what the names are going to be involved, but I think
Right.
that the best way to go about it is to have him lose to everybody that he faces, and have I'm just to throw a name out there. I do think that cheerleader Melissa is going to end up being his sister, and really that's more wishful thinking than anything, because I just want to see her on Lucha Underground, and I know that they signed her and she worked a couple dark matches in season 1, but I want to see her on TV. And I
Right.
know that they also signed Taya Valkyrie, which is awesome because she's great too. But I'm getting off track here. I think that the whole season he needs to lose to pretty much everybody and have her face the same person either later on in the same night or the following week or a couple weeks later, however it works, and have her beat everyone. And then eventually he loses to somebody, and then she loses to them, and then he gets a rematch with them and wins.
Now, Ashley, can I just ask one question? I mean, it may not really matter, but I'm just curious for discussion's sake. When he loses these matches, I mean, do we have a progression? Like maybe he gets closer to winning each time, but he can't put it together, or is it just the same,
Yeah.
like
Oh
pathetic
yeah,
kind of
definitely.
loss?
Like the first couple of months, I would have him lose. I mean, I wouldn't want him losing to like no names. Like I'm not trying to bring in local jobbers just to beat Marty to progress the storyline. Like we're
Right.
talking like early on in the season, like I could see him dropping a match to like Arhennis, and that would be like the bottom of his barrel because Arhennis is more portrayed as an undercard guy. So I would have him just drop a match to Arhennis and then have her beat him, and then have him, I don't know, maybe he drops a match to Aerostar and then she beats him, and then Killshot and then she beats him. And we just kind of keep on moving up the card, and he keeps losing and she keeps winning. But the reason that he keeps on getting these matches is because she uses him as a way to scout these opponents.
Right.
So
Right.
like she tosses him into the wolves and he loses all these matches, but the meantime she's learning how to beat them, and that's why she keeps on winning. And you can build her up to maybe she's in the Gift of the Gods match for Ultima Lucha season 2, and I think that would be great. But then I think it would be cool if the last kind of feud that they have would be maybe a Drago is a good one, maybe a Phoenix, someone that's kind of like upper mid card, where
Yeah.
Marty takes him to the limit, like 10-15 minute match, takes him to the limit, loses to like a quick roll up or something like that, and then his sister gets in the ring with that same person, but they beat her a little bit more decisively. Like they actually hit their finisher on her and pin her 1-2-3, and then at Ultima Lucha, she is in a Gift of the Gods match or something like that. Or maybe she even lost, like maybe the victory that the person that I'm talking about now gets over her is for a medallion, and she loses that, and she ends up not being on the Ultima Lucha card because of it. And maybe like she like flips out and leaves the temple, And then Marty is like, no, you drove my sister away. I'm going to beat you. And he challenges whoever it is to a match at Ultima Lucha and beats them.
That is a very interesting story. I could sink my teeth into that. You know what I like, and I don't want to speak for you, but that's just the way it's like coming off to me. And you even said like doing a slow burn. There definitely is technical potential in Marty the Moth, and I would love to let it out this season, but I'm right there with you that if you're gonna do it, it needs to be a slower burn.
Yeah. And this is the first time, too, that I actually want a slow burn. Because normally I'm just like, okay, let's do the storyline in season 1 and blow it off by the end of the season. But this time I'm like, no, this is like the only storyline that we've talked about so far that I feel like really does need that slower burn.
Definitely, but I'm glad that you and I both. I'm glad that I wasn't the only one that really said, like, I do think there is a Technico there that could really get massively over.
Yeah. And
but
dude, my whole thing is too. Have you ever seen Melissa Anderson's her finishing move?
No, I have not.
Okay. Do you remember or not Hernandez? You remember LAX, right?
Yeah.
You remember Homicide's finisher, right?
Oh yeah, man.
The Vertebreaker?
Yeah.
That's cheerleader Melissa's finisher.
Oh, that's so sick.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, she doesn't just beat people, she destroys people.
That's awesome.
Like, Pentagon broke a lot of arms in season 1, but she needs to break some necks in season 2.
Yeah, dude. Oh my god. Now she has to be his sister. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. Like, I mean, Taya Valkyrie, I know they signed her, and that would be a great person to portray Marty's sister too. But to me, you're not going to get better than Melissa Anderson.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm just hoping for a great season between these two. I mean, the sister is, very intriguing. We've been saying, you especially cheerleader Melissa throughout pretty much the whole thing, and now we've got this Taya Valkyrie as like another person that could do it. I just hope that dynamic fleshes out Marty's backstory, because I love how Lucha Underground does backstories, and I think I've kind of communicated that throughout this series. And Marty's a guy, I think if anybody deserves a backstory in the second season, he's the guy, and I'm just hoping we get that. And yeah, I love the idea of a Drago feud. You had a great nuanced story about Marty more or less redeeming himself and his family against whoever, upset his sister and drove him out of the temple. Yeah. So I think we both have great ideas for Marty, and I'm quite satisfied.
I think that you could do a really good job building up to that too, because you could have, like, after she loses, you could have him be like, it's okay, sis, we're going to be fine. It was just one loss. You're allowed to get away with one loss. And then she just snaps on him like, no, Marty, you need to understand this isn't okay. It's one loss and then another and then another. And at what point do we stop settling for wins or stop settling on losses and stop being hungry and stop caring about winning? And like, she goes on and then like brings it back to like reality. And she's just like, you need to realize that that's not how the world works, Marty. And just, I feel like I'm like doing like a crappy impression of Rick instead of Morty. It's Marty. Let's do it, Marty. No, but like she could like freak out on him and be like, no, you need to get this. This is a big deal that I lost, and you need to kind of snap back into reality. And then he kind of has like a character transformation where rather than being this like delusional, childish character, he gets a little bit more grounded in reality, and that's kind of his next step towards being kind of like a fully realized member of the Lucha Underground roster and not just a glorified jobber. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I wouldn't want Lucha Underground to do this anyway, because that would make it full-blown ham. But when you describe it like that, I want Marty to have a workout montage before the next matchup. You're like, play to win, baby. Yeah. That'd be so good. But yeah, dude, I love your line of thinking. I love that we're both really interested in kind of sketching out this relationship, because Sexy Star is only going to be a point of fixation for so long before they progress. And I'm glad that you and I both in our own ways seem pretty forward thinking about it. Yeah, Marty is a guy, people. If you haven't seen him yet, if you're still like haven't dipped your toes in the first season, first of all, what the hell are you doing? I mean, go do that right now. Second of all, and if you have, he is a guy that I think is going to make huge waves in the second season. I can't wait to see what he does, because we've been talking about, coming out of the first season, Son of Havoc, Angelico, and it's all well-deserved. But I think Marty's a guy that's going to surprise all of us. I mean, I've got really high hopes for him this season. So
absolutely, yeah, definitely. I'm really looking forward to him in season 2, and he's one of the biggest reasons that I was waiting to have him be one of our spotlights. I wanted him to be one of the last ones, is because I knew that I wanted to really kind of give him something interesting to work with, because he's been to me, one of the most underrated parts about Lucha Underground because he is such a good performer. Like his facial expressions, he's a good actor, and I think that he's actually really good at kind of acting awkward, which is a rare talent. Like I know a lot of people are like, "Well, I'm awkward every day," but it's hard to act awkward.
Yes, I agree with you there 100%. Because then,
I mean,
you can
if
tell
you
when it's
think that
inauthentic.
acting, if you think acting awkward is anything but an art, just look at Michael Cera.
Exactly. I think at times, when people try too hard, you can tell how inauthentic it is, and then there's a
Exactly.
real
You can tell
disconnect.
that they're acting, but with Marty, like he comes off as a legit creep. And I know that the actual dude isn't because he was on freaking Tough Enough and he's like the most down to earth guy that I've seen. You know, like he's a normal dude, but when he plays Marty the Moth Martinez, you have to wonder like does he maybe have a screw loose? Like is he a few fries short of a Happy Meal or like what's going on there?
Yeah, I freaking love people like that because it just shows you how dedicated they are to the craft and just
Yeah.
how great that they've gotten. I mean, like you said, here was a guy that was on Tough Enough, and now he's on, I think, to both you and I, the hottest promotion right now, and one that I think is going to make a lot of waves and open up a lot of eyes in its second season.
Yeah.
And I'm just so glad he's a part of this, man, and I'm glad they have him along for the ride because if anybody can do justice by this character, it is a place like Lucha Underground. So let's get to work, man. I am so ready.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, we do want to toss a few ideas out there because obviously tomorrow's NXT Thursday will be our year-end awards. Expect that to be very long. Last year it was like 2 hours and 40 some minutes. So we're not going to hold back on that. We were actually up. Last year we had 51 awards. This year I think we're up to 54. So just a few more added on there for the sake of consistency. And then on Saturday, I believe it is, we are going to be doing our Prince Puma Luchador Spotlight, right, John?
Yeah, that's our last one, isn't it? Because
Well,
we've been
that's
saying,
why I wanted to throw out some ideas because we know for a fact, and this isn't a spoiler because it was on the Lucha Underground season 2 trailer. Rey Mysterio is going to be in season 2.
ooh, that's right.
So we might maybe possibly do a luchador spotlight on him. I don't know. Other options. We know Joey Ryan's going to be in season 2. We know Taya Valkyrie's going to be in season 2. We have some options if we want to continue this series, but that's why I'm bringing this up because I want to know if our fans want more spotlights or alternatively if we should wait until after season 2 to do more spotlights on people that debuted in season 2.
Yeah, and that's an idea that I know you and I have discussed, Ashton. So whatever you guys would prefer, I guess get down to it in the comments. Tell us what you're thinking, and yeah, I'm open to anything. So it's all up to you guys.
Absolutely. But that being said, NXT tomorrow is going to be amazing. And then year-end awards, baby. I'm so looking forward to that commentary. It's going to be so fun. But that's going to be on Thursday, so be looking out for it. But until then, we'll see you guys tomorrow.